What's going on, guys? Welcome back. So Anakin ship came out last week, and in my initial impressions video I talked about how I liked his kit, how there's a lot of stuff here that made him look like he was going to be a very hard-hitting character, helps boost up the offense on your Jedi and clone allies. He has abilities that help him counter Houndstooth and Sun Fac, and there's other annoying tanking characters out there. And his basic has an unevadable target lock. It can be resisted, but it can't be evaded, and he can give allies Valor for 2 turns, stuff like that. So his kit overall, it has been made to work with Mace Windu for the most part, because Mace Windu is your Galactic Republic fleet commander, and I've got to say, I'm surprised just how good Mace is. It's amazing how one ship like this suddenly makes a Mace fleet work so much better. So I want to show you guys some different ways you guys can use Anakin in there. At lower stars, he's better off as a reinforcement versus a starting lineup, because he can easily get picked off by the enemy team because he's very squishy. But for the most part, he is a hard-hitting character. He can hit like a truck. He's going to help boost the damage on your team, and he's really able to help counter those meta tanking ships that you guys fight so much in the fleet. So of course, the big thing we have to mention first is his unique, where he gives your Jedi clone ally 60% bonus offense if they have Valor, only half that if they don't. He has a unique just like he does with his character, where he gains a bonus turn meter and damage when someone takes damage, and he automatically gains Valor for 2 turns when it expires, so he's always going to have Valor. His AoE deals the healing and buff immunity for 2 turns. He gains protection up for each critical hit, and his reinforcement, if you are running lowest stars, like I said, recommend you run him as a reinforcement, and definitely focus on this reinforcement if you are running him at those lower stars, because it gives all allies accuracy up for 2 turns, and then all Galactic Republic allies gain offense up for 2 turns, and then inflicts expose on all enemies for 2 turns, which can't be evaded. It can still be resisted, but he's going to be able to apply it barring that potency check. So great reinforcement ability for him. He's going to help really boost the damage on your team. I'll show a way you guys can use that for yourselves, but for the most part, his stats are pretty similar to Vader's TIE Fighter, which, you know, makes sense. Spoilers. So, health and protection, 85,000, 23,000 health and protection, 176 speed, and 10,700 physical damage. If you go and look at Vader's TIE, it's pretty much a copy. I have to find Vader's TIE first. Here it is. So, Vader's TIE, 84,000 health, 23,000 protection, 174 speed. Pretty similar, 10,672 physical damage on the TIE Advanced. Pretty much a carbon copy for the stats between the two characters. So they're going to both move pretty quickly, they both have hard-hitting abilities, and they both can apply target lock on their basics. And Vader works hand in hand with an Anakin ship, as you guys will see here when I go into the rosters. Anakin and Vader can both apply target locks out the gate, and they can't go away as long as Vader's TIE is up. Let's go ahead and move into rosters and how you want to use Anakin. So this is the fleet I am currently using right now. With this kind of lineup, you have both Vader and Anakin in the starting lineup, and then Houndstooth in that 3rd spot as the tank. Now, in those reinforcement spots, in order, I have Ahsoka's Starfighter, Plo Koon's Starfighter, the Phantom 2, and then 5s. I have seen some people run Ghost instead of 5s, but trust me, there is a reason why you run with 5s here instead of Ghost, because there is some great synergy between Anakin and 5s, and it can decimate the opposing team. Now, with this lineup, you're going to have both target locks in from both Vader and Anakin, and then you're going to be able to manipulate characters at will with different dispels. So you have dispels from Vader with target locked enemies. Ahsoka can automatically dispel when she's called in as a reinforcement. In fact, I highly recommend you work on Ahsoka. Ahsoka is the one ship I recommend you absolutely run with Anakin, because it gets a lot of synergy here. And then her special automatically gets refreshed every time that a reinforcement is called in on the enemy fleet, but it's also a dispel, and it deals a ton of damage. So not only that, you also get the 60% bonus offense here with her because of the Valor with Mace Windu, and whenever time that Mace Windu calls in a reinforcement, they are automatically given Valor for 2 turns. Valor gives the Endurance a loud turn meter and reduces its ultimate by 1 every time. Now, the ultimate is really good. It used to be damage immunity, and I would argue the damage immunity was probably better, but it was kind of overpowered. At this point, they gain protection up 150% for 2 turns, which can't be prevented or dispelled, and retribution for 2 turns. So all that works great, but that's not the only source of retribution that you get. Ahsoka's Starfighter can also give retribution. Whenever she dispels debuffs from her using this ability, all allies gain retribution. And between Mace and Ahsoka there, you're going to get a lot of counters, so both Vader and Anakin can both counter, the attacks can't be evaded, and they can both apply target lock, and they both hit decently hard too. So all that works great. You have Plo Koon with his reinforcement, which will dispel debuffs and heal up your team, which is great. But the two things that you want to focus on with Plo Koon is his special, Wings of the Republic. He dispels all debuffs on target ally and grants them taunt and protection up for 2 turns. Obviously, you're going to put that on Houndstooth. And Inspiring Charge, where he can give all of your allies bonus turn meter, which is huge for ships. So you're seeing a lot of Galactic Republic synergy here. Of course, you have Phantom 2. Everyone knows his reinforcement. The max out, he reduces the cooldown of the reinforcement by 1, so the next time your ship moves, it can then just call in another reinforcement. And then finally, we have 5s. And what you want to focus on here is Umbar missile pods. I don't have this fully upgraded yet, but even so, it still deals a lot of damage, and his reinforcement can reduce turn meter and inflict target lock on enemies. So all that works great. This is a definite team that just, it goes hand in hand. If you want to go for something like Grand Admiral Thrawn, Thrawn works great here because he is able to give you the ability to give bonus crit chance and crit damage to your allies, and with Anakin and Vader, that's going to help boost their damage, going to make them hit a lot harder. So it's definitely another fleet that you can run here with Anakin. It's going to give some bonuses to your guys, going to heal them up, and you have the ultimate where you can automatically annihilate someone on the enemy team. So that works great. Thrawn and Windu are probably your best 2 commanders to work here. Akbar doesn't really get a lot of synergy here. There's not many rebels. And Tarkin seems okay. I mean, you have the debuff, so you get the boost in offense. But for the most part, Tarkin really starts to fall off behind Thrawn and Windu. So I would recommend running Windu first, then Thrawn, then Tarkin, then Akbar if you're working on a fleet commander for Anakin and his ships. A fleet like this, if you want to run Anakin in that reinforcement spot, which again I recommend at lower star counts, definitely something you guys should work on here. So these are a couple different fleet lineups that you guys can use for Anakin and his ships. Let's go ahead and go into the fights, and I'm going to walk you guys through them one by one. So the first battle I want to show you guys is against a Tarkin Geonosian team, the one we still see a lot. It's going to have Soldier, Spy, and Houndstooth in the starting lineup. This is how you usually run your Geonosians now. The first thing you want to do is get Anakin's AoE out and get that buff immunity on Houndstooth here like you see. So now it can use its special, but it can't taunt. That's going to allow you to continue to pick off the other Geonosians. Start working on Geonosian Soldier because you're going to take him out. He can do the constant assist, which can do turn meter reduction and just be an all-around pain for your team. Now the other thing to note here is with Mace, it helps to spread out target locks. So you get a target lock here on Houndstooth because then you follow up with the AoE here from Mace, which hits the target enemy, but also hits all target locked enemies, and it hits for about 30,000 when fully maxed up. So pretty solid here. It's going to hit everyone on the team there, and it's going to give your team Valor. As you can see, the Valor buff is now on everybody. But with this, you're going to start getting a lot of turn meter on Mace, and the ability for that AoE is reduced by 1 for the cooldown for every enemy that gets hit by this every time it uses it. So you just took 3 turns off the cooldown for this again, so you'll be able to use it again here very soon and get more Valor on your team. But in the meantime, you can still keep picking off those other characters. So you can get a target lock here on Spy. Now everybody on that team has target lock, and then you have Sun Fac that gets called in. And this is where things are going to get pretty bad for your team, because we're basically just going to call in 5s here, and you guys know what's coming. I mean, anybody who's run 5s or ever seen 5s before, you know that this team is about to get messed up, and they're all gone except for Sun Fac. I mean, that is pretty much the prototypical way to run this team when you're fighting Geonosians. There is some RNG with target lock, but for the most part, this battle was over in about 40-50 seconds. So Geonosians with Anakin, definitely something you can easily pick apart, but Geonosians for the most part are a pretty weak team. You don't see a lot of them, so you guys are probably wanting to see something a little bit more. So yeah, we'll go ahead and do that, and we'll finish off with a special here for 40,000 from Ahsoka. So pretty solid damage there. It wasn't even a crit. So over in about a minute and a half, easy peasy. Now the next match is going to be against a Thrawn bounty hunter team, and you know, for the most part, it's going to be a little bit trickier. You have Xanadu Blood, Biston's U-Wing, and Houndstooth here. So you have a lot of breach, a lot of target lock potential here, and this could be a problem. Now, of course, your characters were able to, Houndstooth was able to go first, but you were able to get the breach on Houndstooth, but of course he cleansed it. So there is that problem, but we are going to have to keep Vader and Anakin out there applying those target locks and picking through this team, and we're about to lose Vader here if we're not careful. So your Bounty Hunter, Houndstooth teams, definitely a little bit trickier, but this one, for the most part, still able to get through it. It's going to take a little bit longer, about 2 to 3 minutes, but it's still able to pick through it. Now, Houndstooth, very tough character to get through if you can't find ways to dispel it. And for here, I call him Plo Koon because he automatically cleanses the breach off my team, heals everybody up, so now I can now dispel the taunt on the Houndstooth without it having the taunt automatically reapplied. So then I'll use a special here where it gives everybody on my team turn meter, allow them, you have Vader and Houndstooth who are moving right away, so you're able to cleanse that taunt, and then you can start going for the ships that aren't stealth anymore. So you can see both Bistan and Xanadu Blood both now have the ability to be picked off. Now with Mace and with Plo Koon, they're both able to apply taunts and crit immunity to Houndstooth. So Houndstooth can take an absolute beating here. Now Houndstooth and Xanadu Blood both have target lock. Call in another character here, and we'll get target lock from Vader. But for the most part, not going to be too bad because we'll just go ahead and pick off the Houndstooth there with the debuffs that didn't apply, but we did get rid of the Xanadu Blood. So that is always nice to have. We'll get a little bit more damage in on the poor old Houndstooth over there. And we'll call in Ahsoka here, and you can see she gained a lot of health from dispelling everything there. She now has somewhere in the range of 110, 120,000 health. And then you can go ahead and use her dispel here, and it did a huge chunk of damage to Houndstooth. So hard-hitting single target abilities like that can really help pick out the Houndstooth, and there you go, Houndstooth is gone. We lost our Vader, but for the most part, this fight's pretty much over because we can just go ahead, pick off Vader, and pretty much call it a day. But I go and use the ultimate here just to be safe, and there you go, Vader's gone. We'll use the AoE one more time. Then you never see it here because usually you're able to pick off the Tarkin teams in time. But one thing to note is that Tarkin ultimates are completely countered by the Mace ultimate because that 150% protection up pretty much means all your characters are going to survive that mass call to assist with the TIE Fighters. And finally, I want to show you guys with Anakin and that reinforcement spot and how to use them. So you can see I've got Vader, Fives, and Houndstooth up front. Gonna be fighting a similar team, Xanadu Blood, TIE Fighter, and Houndstooth here. Gonna get the offense down on TIE Fighter, which is a little risky here because, you know, he can evade attacks and give turn meter to his ship. So we'll go ahead and start whittling away at Houndstooth here. But for the most part, you want to be careful because you don't want to have the Vader get picked off because that could pretty much spell the end of your team as long as you don't have Anakin in. If you do have Anakin in at that point, it's going to be a little easier for you. We'll go ahead and call in Plo Koon because it helps heal up my team and help cleanse the debuffs. So now I can go ahead and get rid of that taunt here. And that's another thing to note is that Fives can dispel target locked enemies. So this allows me to start picking off some of the other characters here and not worry about constantly hitting Houndstooth. We have target lock now on 2 different characters. And at this point, you've got the fact that you have all these debuffs, but you have a counter and protection up on the Houndstooth, which means it can constantly cleanse itself. So we'll go ahead and hit it a couple more times here, but then we'll go ahead and use the basic here again with Fives. We'll dispel it, and then we'll just continue to whittle away at it and slowly work it down from there. This is the trick with using Anakin in that backup spot. You have to wait for him to come in before you really start to hit that high-end damage because you don't have the offense boost from Anakin here. You don't have all that stuff going on here, but for the most part, I don't know why I did that. I should just use the basic there to get rid of the Xanadu Blood, and that would have been fine, but I'll go ahead, use target lock here. I should have hit another third character, but again, it's fine. It's taken about 2 minutes so far. We're slowly winning against this team, but it's just taking a while. And that is the main problem, is with Anakin in that backup spot instead of out front, you don't have that offense right away, which means you slowly have to build it up. And that's the drawback with him at lower stars. He's squishier, he's going to be easier to kill for the enemy, and you don't get that offensive punch right away. You have to build up to it instead of having it right out of the gate and just decimating the team. So here we'll get the protection up on the team, and then we'll probably go ahead and pick off the Houndstooth here in a moment, and then we just go for Maul ship, and we will pretty much just wrap it up from there. So about 2.5, 3 minutes to beat this fight. Houndstooth is gone, but at this point, it's pretty much over for my team. I've got almost a one-shot the poor Scimitar there, and that's pretty much it. So in that reinforcement spot, definitely a drawback, but if you have him a lower star count, you can still use him there, but just have to be wary that it is going to slowly build up your offense instead of having an offensive blast right out of the gate. So that is something to keep in mind with Anakin in that reinforcement spot, is that there are probably still some better compositions to run out there while he's at the lower star count, but once you can start getting him geared up and work on a higher star count, the Anakin ship definitely by far belongs in the front lines. It's hard hitting, lots of target locks, can shut down that Houndstooth right away. It is definitely a viable character that you really should include in your front lineup as soon as possible. So 5 stars, probably pushing it, but you could probably make it work. Once you're at 6 stars, definitely you can throw him in the starting lineup. So that is 3 fights for you guys. That is a couple ways to show how to use him, different ship combinations you see out there. So if you guys do have questions, ask down below. Feel free to like, share, and subscribe, and I will talk to you guys later.